Welcome, all fellow wannabes. Welcome to the show. You are listening to Game Club. I am Gabriel Fast. I am one of your hosts, and joining me is a wannabe critic slash geekly bi-weekly alumni, one Jace Nevik X86 Gamel via Zoom
What's
chat.
up?
How are you, Jace?
Good. I can't believe you added my gamer tag. Now I'm gonna get Xbox Live famous, even though I don't have an Xbox anymore.
Yeah, there you go. And you need to change it. You need to change your PlayStation handle back to. You need to change it to Nevik X86 because it just feels right. You know,
It's quite the OG name.
it really is. It really is. How you been, man?
Good, dude. I haven't been on a podcast with you in quite a while. Things have just gotten so busy. I've been trying to think back. I was like, when was the last time I was on a podcast with Gabe? And I was like, it wasn't before I went to Patterson, was it?
No, the last time you were on a podcast, I think you were actually, you had just moved into your apartment. I think
Oh, yeah, that's right. I do remember that.
so. About a
Okay.
year ago, I guess, or 9 months ago, something like that.
Yeah, it would have been 8-9 months
Yeah.
ago, or maybe, yeah, somewhere around there.
Something like that. But yeah, man, it's been a while. I'm excited to have you on. We are, obviously we've launched some new projects over here at the Wannabe Critic, and I wouldn't feel right not having you be a part of it in some way, shape, or form. So,
I know. I'm glad I could get back to it.
yeah, I'm glad
Super
you.
busy, but now it's calming down, and I'm
Right.
ready to get back into some podcasting.
Yeah, I'm ready to. And we've been talking off mic about what our plans are, and if the listeners are interested, you're just gonna have to wait and see what we have up our sleeve. Obviously, ladies and gentlemen, if you actually know what, if you didn't know already, you are listening to Game Club. Now, what Game Club is we talk video games a lot. We give detailed reviews, sometimes over the course of several episodes, a couple times a month. Some of those games you already know, and some of these you don't, which is all the more reason to be a part of the club, all done in wannabe fashion and geeked out goodness. Today, we're going to be reviewing Bastion, actually, and Bastion came out about 10 years ago. I have a long-standing history with this game, and so does Jace, and we're very excited to talk about it. But in our constant efforts and attempts to make quality content, we have branched off into several podcast feeds, of which are available to you right now. And if you want to see more information on those, you can definitely go to wannabecritic.com to check out more about all the podcast feeds, like A Guy and His Wife, The Wannabe Critic, and even Storytime, a Star Wars podcast, which is now in full swing, and hopefully you're already enjoying it. But Jace, we are not here to talk about any of that crap, are we?
Heck no. We're here to talk about video games.
That's right. This is Game Club. We talk games a lot. So, as I mentioned before, and as the title pretty plainly gives it away, we're talking about Bastion. Now, Bastion, I was thinking about like how I came into contact with this game, and you always told me that I should that you were the one who told me about it, and I'm like, is that right? And I was thinking about it. I'm like, what? How did this happen? I saw it on sale one time, and I think you were there, and you're like, dude, yeah. Bastion, like, it's this cool game, but I think you said it wasn't for you or something like that, or maybe you hadn't finished it yet or something. I don't remember, but I do remember you were actually the one that encouraged me to buy it because it was on sale. But I got super into it. Like, do you remember this story?
So so I never bought it on Xbox, which we had a dispute about this maybe a year back about like who got into it first. And we actually looked it up, and it came out on Xbox first. I never had it on Xbox.
Yeah.
I had it on PC, which it came out to PC about 3 months later, back in, 2012, 2011? Yeah. I forgot what year it came out, but it was a long time ago. It was probably around that time I was at your house a lot.
Yeah.
But anyways, I just remember picking up this game, and I was playing it. I was like, this is a really, really cool game. And, like, I think I definitely told you about it. And I feel like you already knew about it. And then I told it to like a few other people, and they were super interested into the idea. But as far as I know, me and you are really the only ones that have like actually played and beat this game.
Yeah, really delved into it. And it still remains, this was and we're going to get kind of, since we're going back, kind of to the beginning of where it all started, this was a very instrumental piece for me to kind of get into, reviewing things. 'Cause I think this is the first thing I ever reviewed on my blog, or one of the first things.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Cause so
I know that.
yeah. So I remember making the Gabriel Reviews, .tumblr.com. You might still be able to find it. But and I think it was either this or BioShock Infinite. I feel like I did my review on BioShock Infinite first, and then I did this, and because these games came out really close to each other, and or maybe I did Bastion first. I don't know. It was very instrumental on me, because it told the story very much in a way that I had not ever experienced before. And, you're, 17, 18 or whatever, and you're very impressionable around that time, or 16, 17, whatever. And I just remember beating the game and being just kind of like in awe of what had happened. And we will get into some spoilers towards the end of, towards the end of the review, but, and this is just going to be a one and done episode. I know we say, we can go up to 4 episodes on a certain thing, but I feel like this is just a pretty good, one and done type thing. And I've been dying to talk about this game forever.
It's a pretty short game. It's not like something that's going to take you. I would say you could probably, if you really wanted to, you could sit down and beat it in one sitting if you just had the time and wanted to just like get it out of the way.
I think probably 6 hours. Like if you just sat down and played it, it's going to take you anywhere from probably 6 to 7 hours, I would say, somewhere around there. I mean, it's not long, but it does have a thing about it where if you want to go through it immediately, there's incentive because there's New Game Plus, there's score attack mode, and I've gone back.
Yeah,
I've gone back to like try and, I'm trying to get all the trophies, and I want to get the platinum trophy because, there's a lot of hard challenges. So I'm actually in score attack mode right now. And just playing through it this past time, I'm like, God dang it, like this game is so good. And it just never really gets old, and it still remains one of my favorite, not only indie games, but just games in general.
It's funny that you say that because, I got it. I mean, I got 10 years ago on PC, played through, and I was like, that's a pretty amazing game. And then coming up today, it came out on Switch a few months ago, got it, picked it up, and played through it. I'm like, this game it still holds up, dude.
Yeah.
It still holds up, and that is insane for a game to hold up like that after 10 years.
Right.
I mean, the game is still beautiful. The music is beautiful. Like, the story, oh man,
and it just has like the way it's designed. It just has this really cool way about it where whatever system it's on. I mean, for God's sakes, it was on like the iPhone 4. Like it's been ported to everything. I mean, this game has a 10 out of 10 on Steam, and user ratings and things like that. Like people love this game, and it does not surprise me to see Supergiant bringing it over to all these different other platforms. And it seems like whatever platform you play it on, it feels like it belongs there, which is really special. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see it get a PS5 and Xbox Series X port. It wouldn't surprise me to see that happen.
That'd be super cool.
What's interesting is people love this game so much, and it did so well that this game was actually published by WB. And then after this game came out, and not to mention, this is Supergiant's debut game. This is the first game they ever made. So, going from that, are you there, Jace?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay, just the Zoom will kind of like mess me up, and since you don't have a camera, it's kind of hard for me to make sure I'm not sound like an idiot. But just WB obviously saw something in Supergiant Games. They published this game, Bastion, and then Bastion does so well. Supergiant's like, obviously, we don't have to stick with WB. We can publish our own games. So from then on, Supergiant has been in charge of their own destiny, publishing and developing whatever they want. But still, just the fact that this is the debut game from Supergiant speaks volumes as to how impressive the development cycle for the studio is, and really just like makes a bigger impact on me. It's like, wow, these guys had talent from the very beginning, and it's crazy. Like, you don't see this happen. You know what I mean? So, did you know that this was their debut, Jace?
I think I did. Yeah, I think you told me that a while ago that this was the first game that they came out with, and it's like, wow, like it's so nice to see a developer come out with something like that. Like, it's not there to make money, they're there to tell a story.
Right.
And that's what this game is. Like, it's not like we're here to get the cash out of your pocket.
Right.
we want to teach you a story, we want to teach you a life lesson,
right,
through a game, which I always love that kind of game where it can teach you something.
Right.
It's just like, hey, here's a story that you've heard a million times, but here's a twist on it.
Right. Well, and let's kind of get into it a little bit. So, the overall, I'm gonna kind of give a brief description of what the game's story is about. So basically, you're this kid. You wake up and like you find yourself in this world from these fictional races of people like the Ceylondians, the Yura. There's also a variety of like monsters you have to fight, like the windbags and stuff like that, and just everything happening. There's this calamity that's hit, and you're trying to make your way through these worlds that are in the sky. And, everything you do is narrated by, just this strange person. I think it's Rux, actually, who's the one who's narrating. So, like, if you swing your hammer, he'd be like, the kid swung his hammer the best he could. Like, just everything you're doing, this guy is narrating. And at first, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to like this, but it starts to really grow on you.
It picked up on me really fast. Yeah. I was like, having a narrator is weird until I met the narrator himself. I was like, oh man, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah.
And then it gets more interesting from there. Like, you meet more and more characters throughout the game.
Yeah.
That, like, just add tidbits because you're a silent protagonist. Like,
yeah.
You don't say anything. A word in the game.
Right. The only thing you do is grunt, like, while you're, like, rolling and stuff like that, basically.
You just grunt. That's about all you say. And even when you do say something to a character, it's through the narrator's voice.
Yeah, exactly. Like the narrator is moving the story along. But basically, he finds, the narrator talks about how there was this place they had to go to if anything was to ever go wrong, which is the Bastion. A Bastion is a kind of like a place of refuge for those a safe haven, exactly. And so what he's having to do is he's having to go through and find all of these basically like cores from this world, like crystals, basically, to bring it back to the Bastion to try and like rejuvenate the Bastion, basically. And that's pretty much the bare bones of the game. Did I miss anything, Jace?
No, I think you got it all. You're just set in basically a post-apocalyptic. Oh man, I can't say that. You're set in a world where a great calamity hit through, and you're not the sole survivor, but you're a survivor, and you're going through trying to restore what once was.
Yeah, that's exactly what I lacked. You made it up. So now we get this really interesting adventure, from this as this character known as the Kid. And you basically go through these worlds, you get new weapons, you're trying to get these cores, and, basically trying to repair the Bastion, and, things kind of pick up from there. So without spoiling too much, Jace, what is, like, the high points for you regarding, anything about this game? Like, gameplay, music, anything. Like, just let it all out, man.
Oh, the high point for me for sure is the music. The music stands out in this game. The music is, this is like really the first game that I got to play that was kind of like that top-down, like slash 'em kind of game.
Beat 'em up, like a hack and slash type thing.
Yeah, kind of like that. It was my first time playing that, where you you have to dodge out of the way of like certain enemies' attacks, and you have to like kind of like maneuver around different enemies because. I mean, as far as I know, this was kind of the first game like that. I don't know. I'm not sure if it was or wasn't, but it's kind of got that like Enter the Gungeon kind of style gameplay where you just got to dodge bullets, you got to work around your enemies and like hit them. But it's also, I mean, you have your ranged weapons and then you have your melee weapons. And like the gameplay is super fun, super smooth, always has been. Even on the Switch, it's super fun and smooth. I don't know about you, but I always preferred using the bow and the katana. Those were my favorite.
Oh, yeah. Like, well, see, I go through phases because there's a wide variety of weapons.
Oh, yeah.
And
sure.
I'm going through it this next time, and I'm like, how am I going to get... Because there's a thing where it's like you have to beat all these different, like, trials, basically, with all the shrines invoked. And there's this thing you can unlock called, I think it's like the shrine or whatever, and you can go through and like evoke the power of the gods, and like it'll make your experience through the game a lot more challenging. And like adding one or two, it's the same thing as kind of like the skulls in Halo. So you can add all these things. So there's this trophy where you have to basically every single one of these dreams that you have to go do has all 10 shrine idols invoked, and there's like 30 waves of enemies, so it's really hard. So I'm like going through it about this next time. I was like, then the weapons I would normally use, I'm trying to like force myself. Cause I think I've beaten this game. I mean, I beat it 3 or 4 times on Xbox 360. I beat it 2 or 3 times on Vita, and I think this is the 3rd time I'm going through it on PS4. So I mean,
oh, nice. Yeah, you really know this game then.
Yeah, I mean, I love this game. I really do, and it's just there's just something about it. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's like the equivalent of watching The Office or something like that. There's just a familiarity about it that you're not really like, you don't really get from anything else.
It's quite the opposite for me. It's really, really hard for me to go through a game a second time. Like, it is just struggling for me to go through a game a second time, because like once I beat it, I'm kind of like a one and done, unless if like there's something else in the game that I missed. Like, I can't really think of like the last game I tried to go through a second time and beat. But actually, Bastion is like one of those games where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go through this game and beat it.
Yeah. Well, I think there's sometimes too, like trying to get every achievement the first time, on Xbox 360. I couldn't. I was looking at the things like, okay, I don't know if I can get all of these, but which ones can I get? And one of them was going through on New Game Plus, which lets you play with all your upgraded weapons, and that was like, oh, this is a cakewalk, So just kind of a whole different vibe to it. But I totally get what you're saying. But I love this game, and this time I'm going through, I'm like, okay, I'm looking for weapons and opportunities. It's like, how am I gonna get past all of those hard enemies? Like, what weapons can I use to kind of do it? So I find myself now like actually kind of using I'm using the hammer a lot, but I've actually been using the bellows quite a bit as well, and like that action skill, because it does quite a bit of damage pretty quickly. So, there's this weapon, basically it's like fire bellows, but instead of blowing out air, it just blows out flames pretty much. So it's dragon's breath essentially at your fingertips that you can upgrade.
That's pretty cool.
And I'm glad you bring up the weapon system, because each weapon basically has,
so interesting.
It really is, and there's so many different options, because like for your 6 shooters that you get, like there's so many different things. Like, okay, do you want your bullets to do more damage, or do you want your bullets to like pierce through enemies and like do the same amount of damage? And like, do you want your bullets to go through enemies at like a higher speed, or do you want like just more damage to happen, on all these things? And there's all these different options. Like, you have 2 trees essentially to choose from, but you can only have, once you purchase the upgrade, you can choose between one or the other, and you can switch back at any time. But like, I love how there's almost a dozen weapons, and they all have this thing. So there's so many combinations that you can try and see what's perfect. What fits your play style perfectly. And
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like I find myself trying new combinations that I wouldn't have tried before, and it's like, oh wow, it's like playing a completely different game. Like it's a completely different experience, which is rare to find in a game. And I think that's why, the developer, they even added more things to the Steam version of the game after it came out, like the portal challenges and stuff like that. Did you ever see that?
No, I guess not. I haven't downloaded it on my PC. I downloaded it like a few months ago, but I haven't played it on Steam, and man, the last time I launched that game was probably 2014.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a mode where it's like the portal robots basically are in Bastion. And
really?
Yeah, but it's only on the PC version, so it is what it is. But point is
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, you should. The weapon system is dope though. Like,
no, it is. I love it.
Yeah.
I love every single part of it. It's so funny because like, you get used to a style when you choose these 2 weapons, and whenever you pick up a new weapon, you'll pick something up, and then you'll go back and switch it out, and the narrator will say something funny like, "Kid goes back to something more of his style."
Yeah.
And it's like, that's true. Like, this is the style of gameplay that I want. But yeah, you're right. Each like weapon you kind of have to figure out how to use, and it makes your gameplay different each time. So
yeah,
it definitely has that more replayability than most games. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I think like even just getting something like the Calamity Cannon, which is basically just a rocket launcher, like towards the end of the game, it's like, well, how am I gonna use this now whenever I'm used to all these other things. Like I have to start upgrading that from the beginning, basically. And it's just a really diverse system. But again, as you said, it kind of adds to that replayability.
Yeah.
So the gameplay is obviously really good, and I feel like the traversal of the worlds, everything is up in the sky, kind of like almost like God view a little bit, and
Yeah.
just watching him kind of go through the motions, and there's not really any puzzles in this game. Like there's not really any problem solving. I mean, the bosses are pretty straightforward. It's a very the game moves you along and is not really meant to be super challenging in the main story, I would say, unless you want it to be. That's what the shrine idols are for or whatever. But yeah, I can't say enough good things about the gameplay. I wish there was kind of a layer of exploration there a little bit, of how do I, this area is blocked off, how do I get to it? Because everything that the game wants you to come across, unless you just stay on the main path and don't go down any sideways, then you're gonna get through the game pretty quickly. And I feel like there could be a measure of depth added if there was some sort of like key system, of you can only get this weapon if you go through this door and there's a key, spread throughout. I don't know. I feel like it was the first game. They should have played it safe. They did play it safe. And I've never had these critiques before until now. So, going back through that's like, and they add more things later in their later games that we'll maybe get to at some point. But yeah, I can't say enough good. Do you have anything negative to say about the gameplay, really?
About the gameplay, not really. There are some times where like you can get overwhelmed very easily. There are like there's this one point in the game, it's very early on actually, where there's these carts that like throw these wisps at you, and they don't stop until you take down the carts, and I forgot that you had to take out the carts to make them stop. So I was like, holy crap. And there's just like they just keep on coming, and I was like, how does this happen?
Yeah,
but
it looks
that's not
like
my fault, and that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like you're supposed to get overwhelmed a little bit with those.
Yeah.
So
and there definitely are overwhelming situations. And like, are you talking about like the popcorn cart basically is kind of what it looks like?
Yeah, exactly. But nothing really, I don't have anything negative to say about this game. This game is beautiful in graphics. I mean, it looks like everything is painted almost. Like it just looks like you're a kid running around on a painted like island basically.
Yeah. I mean,
graphics are amazing. Go ahead.
No, continue.
Oh, graphics are amazing. Music's amazing. Story's amazing. Gameplay, everything is just so well done in this game, and it's so like tidy. Like there's nothing that looks out of place when you're going through this like this cursed world basically. Just everything, it makes all sense, and like there's actually just like it gives you a little bit of emotion even though you don't know like what's going on. And like I think I told you this the other day. I think I told you this yesterday actually about like certain games where I hate being dropped in a mystery in the middle. Like I don't like that. Like I don't like being put in the middle of a story and I have to figure out the past and the future and the present. I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't like those kind of games. But with this, you are dropped in the middle of like a story, but the world is so intriguing and interesting. You like want to figure out what's going on. So that you want to figure out what the calamity is, like, and as you go on, you want to figure out how to like fix the Bastion and like restore what's left. Because even though most of these characters don't say anything, they actually grow on you pretty fast.
Yeah, totally. And I think like you kind of hit something that I was going to go for too. This very much throws you in the middle of, we have the two races. We have the two races of people. It's like the Yura and the Ceylondians. And but through the game you pick up all these little artifacts, and and you find people that actually agree to come to the Bastion. So you actually have two people of the Yura and two Ceylondians. You are a Ceylondian, and so is the narrator. And so you have two of those, and a male Yura and a female Yura. And it's funny how all these artifacts you pick up, like you can have one artifact, but you have three different perspectives. From Rux, the male Yura, I think his name's Zulf, and then the female Yura, I can't remember what her name is. But they all give you something different. to say about that one artifact, and it's so interesting, and it's kind of a two-edged sword a little bit, because for me, I love the lore. It's the world and everything of the characters. Like, it's so rich, and it feels like a sin to not explore it more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's why. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, this is definitely one of those games where the more you put into it, yeah, you can beat it in 6 hours and get like the gist of the game. But it's one of those games. The more that you put into it, and the more you explore and like ask questions to the characters, and like again say like bring these artifacts to them, the more you're gonna get out of it. And I love games like that. I love the games where the more you put into it, the more you're gonna get out of it. It just makes the reward and the richness of the game like very well worth.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I love whenever games, don't necessarily beat you over the head with their message. They just kind of let you kind of come to the conclusion on your own, or not come to the conclusion on your own. And I feel like there's a lot to be said about this game. A lot of deep meanings within this game, especially about race, just basically hating somebody because they lead a different life than you, and being misunderstood, based off, not being judged by your character, pretty much. And there's a lot of things in this game that are just, they're so well done. And then I say it's a two-edged sword because I'm not going to take away points from the game, but it's like, I've played this game so many times, and I just feel like there's such a bigger story to be told about the world before and after. Before and after, everything was happening. I just feel like we could have had so much more storytelling. They could have very easily made a Bastion 2, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I can agree, but I can also disagree on that. I have people, I forgot who asked me if they'll ever make a Bastion 2, and I'd be like, it'd be interesting, but I think we'll get more into it when the spoilers kind of are open. But like, yeah, I want to come back to that question.
Okay, put a pin in it.
Yep.
So to finish my point, I just feel like there's a bigger story to be told, and I want more. And that's my biggest thing, is like, man, this is such a self-contained experience. I want more. I wish there was more. As far as like the music goes, the soundtrack is top notch. There is the composer Darren Korb. He actually plays in DADGAD tuning on this entire soundtrack, and it actually made me want to kind of learn. And then also a similar someone else who plays in that same tuning is actually John Paul White from the Civil Wars. So he kind of has this like southern twang to it a little bit, but kind of like, like deep and folky and just kind of dark sounding. And I've actually made that the primary style of how, the primary tuning that I actually play music is actually in DADGAD, which is just, basically open D. But I absolutely love the music. The soundtrack in this game is top notch. It's just so good. I can't say enough good things about it.
There's not many games where I can go through and I can be like, okay, if I'm at work, I'm like, you know what? I want to listen to some like, video game music. There's not many albums I can think of where I'm like, okay, that sounds like good to me to listen to for relaxation.
Right.
But like this game is one of them. It's just so good.
It's all instrumental aside from a few songs. And it's funny because they actually incorporate the lore of the game into some of the songs, like, Build That Wall and stuff like that. There's a lot of, there's some from, like, basically, like, the Yura are singing a song, and then they make that song that she's singing a cappella into a song from, in the soundtrack. And it's incredible. Like, the last song that gets played at the end of this game, it gives me chills every time, because you're kind of faced with a decision you have to make, and it just adds to the weight of the entire thing. But yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good things about it. I think it's a great soundtrack. I think it's definitely I wish there were a vinyl available for it today, because I checked on Supergiant's website and they don't have them anymore. But I mean, there's very few, kind of like you, there's very few game soundtracks where I'm like, oh, I just want to turn this on and just listen to it. I have the Last of Us vinyl here, as you can see. And that is one of those ones where I'm like, I can listen to that anytime. I love Gustavo Santaolalla. He, really good composer. there's been so many times where I'm like, man, I wish I had a vinyl of Bastion. But I just can't find it anywhere. So there's that. What do we want to talk about next? What about the characters? Why don't you kind of expound on what you think of the characters?
So, as far as I know, there's like 4 main characters really in this game. We got the kid, who is your protagonist. He's the one you play as. He's the one that goes to restore the Bastion. Then you have Rux, who is at first known as the Stranger, but as you get to meet him, you find out his name, and he is your narrator. Then you have Zulf, who is he's another character that belongs in the Bastion. And then you have oh my gosh, what's her name?
That's what I'm saying. I forgot her name.
Dude, oh my gosh, what is her name? I'm actually surprised I remembered
Kira?
The first 2. Oh yeah.
Kira or
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I'm looking it up. Keep going.
Okay, anyways. So each character, there's only 4 characters that really talk. There's 4 characters, but only 3 of them talk. So the biggest character development is going to be on these 3 characters, obviously. And, it's a short game. It's hard to get a lot of character development in there, but like they have such good charisma, like especially the narrator, which is why this game works so well, that you love these characters like almost off the bat. Like you want to know more about them. You want to know about their past life.
Totally.
And, like, what happens.
Yeah, you're just very kind of thrown into the lore, and her name is Zia, by the way.
That's right.
Yeah, Zulf and Zia, but. Even though there's not really a ton of dialogue from the other characters, you do just kind of feel engrossed into their story because the Yura and the Ceylandians do not like each other. It kind of, it's hard to talk about more without getting into spoiler territory. So I feel like that's about that time. So ladies and gentlemen, if you do not want to be spoiled on the last of Bastion, the end of Bastion, we're going to be getting into some spoilers here. So I can't say it enough. If this game's 10 years old, you need to go play it right now if you don't already. If you don't care about spoilers and you want to stick around, we're about to spoil it to death. So here we go. So,
Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Nice one.
Oh, wait, sorry.
Oh, wrong thing. So the whole Yura versus Ceylandian thing, obviously we know, Zulf gets pissed about, everything that happened with the Calamidians, is basically trying to tear up the Bastion and blames the Ceylandians and all these other things, and he beats up the Bastion pretty much, and turns out he goes to find more of his race, the Yura, and they come to the Bastion to tear it up, and you have to come and try and protect it. So the Bastion gets beat up. So the first half of the game, most of the game at the beginning is you're going for these cores, but then Zulf, someone who you brought to the Bastion, wrecks it, and then now you have to go find the shards to try and reclaim the Bastion, pretty much.
Right.
And then, from then on, Zulf is actually after the shards as well because he's trying to basically, prevent you from accomplishing your goal once he sees what you're trying to do. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, and that's one thing that the story doesn't do. They don't make it super duper clear why Zulf is actually going after the shards alongside you. I mean, you kind of get the point that he's the villain at this point. And if you're going after the shards, he should be too. That's basically the gist of it.
You don't find that out till a little bit later, but he is the antagonist of the story. He's the one that because it's really interesting as you're building the Bastion, you're just kind of like, oh, this is all coming together really nicely, and then here this guy comes in and just screws everything up, and then you just hate him.
Yeah, you really do.
Because the Bastion turns into a really beautiful spot.
Yeah.
Once you start building it, and I'm just like, man, I really like this. And then once this guy came and tore it up, I hated him.
Yeah.
Which plays into the story later.
It does.
Which is something that the game does really well. It makes you, because the game at the end it gives you choices.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to get into these choices yet,
well,
but
wait. Yeah.
These choices play into the game makes you want to feel about these characters exactly the way it makes you want to feel, because it's about choices that are gonna affect like the what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so
It is.
good.
It's really good, and it's very. It makes you think, just kind of about life in general and like choices that you make and how there's so little people, and all of these choices from here on out, since there's so little people, any one decision that somebody makes inherently affects the bigger picture and the world around them. You know what I mean? And like we'll get into it in a minute. So essentially Zulf comes back. My favorite thing, I want to talk about just the Bastion itself, because it very much is like the tower of sorts, kind of like from Destiny. It's your main hub. Like there's challenges there. There's your shops and stuff there. Like it's your workstation there. It's a kind of, that's where all your NPCs are that you're, playing as. And my favorite thing about it though is whenever you go through, if you're exploring the worlds enough, you actually end up finding, the enemies that are kind of abandoned or like kind of estranged from their group that come and join the Bastion with you. So like the wisps that Jace was talking about, they call them squirts. Like you get a squirt that comes to live with you. There's a couple of bosses that like there's a couple of bosses that if you choose to grab they're artifacts basically, and they show up like they're all there, kind of like a part of your family a little bit, and you feel like Jace said, like it's kind of coming together, and it's a really nice feeling. And then the worst part is whenever Zulf kind of wrecks the Bastion the first time by himself, like kind of starts beating up. Then he brings the Yura back and starts beating up the Bastion. You just kind of see all the Yura, attacking everything that you've built and worked on, and attacking these creatures that you've brought here, and they can die. So I'm pretty sure they can die. So I always try my best to like keep the creatures alive, because it would really suck to lose them. But you do have this sense of like, man, this guy hates me. Like he hates me for the wrong reasons, and it's kind of a silly thing, but kind of moving it along and trying to get back to, I just wanted to make that point, just about the Bastion itself, but the choices that you have to make in the game. So to my knowledge, there's only 2 choices. Am I right, Jace?
I believe there are 4. Well, there are 2 choices. Should we just go ahead and drop the big spoilers?
Well, what's the first choice? Because does it involve Zulf?
Yes.
Okay.
The first choice involves Zulf.
So yeah, the first choice with Zulf. Go ahead. What do we get the choice of?
So you get to the point where you go and you defeat Zulf, in this like Iceland of sorts, and you have the choice to either leave him in this calamity that's just breaking down, or you can bring him with you and try to escape with him on your back. What choice did you make your first time through?
I saved him.
So did I. I saved him too. I picked him up, and then that song you were talking about earlier starts playing, and then like you can't attack during this point. Like you're just like, and like enemies are all around you, and you're getting shot at, and you're just carrying this guy who freaking destroyed everything. That you hate this guy. Like I hated him. I was like, man, I really hate this guy, but I
can't leave him.
What's right?
Yeah.
And like I got. And it's a pretty emotional ending. I was like, man, this song is like really good. It was so good. And like as you're carrying him, like you're just getting shot at. It's like I liked the ending that I got. I am glad with my first ending I picked him up and I brought him with me.
Yeah. Well, and it was nice too, and we'll get into the next spoiler here. It's just, I don't know. At the end of the day, I feel like whenever you make the decision, there's only a handful of games I can think of that ever punishes you for trying to do the right thing. And I feel like usually games reward you whenever you try and be a good guy. So I save him every time I play this game. Like, I don't know. I don't think I've ever left him. But essentially after our battle with Zulf, because what's happened is, if Zulf wanted to go off and do his own thing, that's fine. But the only problem is Zia is actually a Yura as well. So Zulf actually kidnaps Zia, and that's kind of that turns into our quest, is to kind of go and rescue Zia, but Zulf won't let her go without a fight type thing. So, naturally we gotta take Zulf to Pound Town, you know what I mean? So,
Exactly what you mean.
yeah, exactly. So in doing that, our quest for the last shard kind of comes to an end, and we get back to the Bastion, and we have enough power harnessed at this point from all these crystals and things like that Rux ends up telling us, okay, kid, here's what we can do. There's stuff, stuff's going down, like the world around us is kind of falling apart. The Bastion's not really holding, as much as we wanted it to. So here's what we can do. We can harness the power and basically restart to the beginning, like go back to a time to try and prevent the calamity from happening. Or we can use what we have and just evacuate the Bastion, like leave the Bastion behind, everything you've worked for. Leave the Bastion behind and try and start a new life, basically, with all the people you have. And it's a hard decision because this music's playing and Rux has like been talking about this machine he made, and all this weird stuff. It's very like steampunky kind of.
Yeah, I would say so too.
Yeah. So the first time I played it, I actually think the first time, and I could be mistaken, it's been, a while, I feel like I tried to set back time to the calamity because I don't think I didn't really want to say goodbye to that world yet, because I knew my journey was kind of coming to a close, and I was like, I don't think I'm not ready to leave. I want to see what happens. What was the first? Do you remember the decision you made?
I evacuated.
You did evacuate the first time?
I thought, because I thought about it, and I was like, even if we go back to the time before the calamity, there's no way of knowing that this will happen again, and it's going to be, we're going to be in Calamity 2.0, and who knows, it could get worse.
Right.
So I was like, it's better to take what you have and start fresh rather than take a gamble on and making things worse,
Yeah, totally. And I think once I got to the end of the game, I was like, I know I'm going to play this game more. So I just went ahead and I was like, well, and I saw there's a new game plus achievement. So I was like, well, whatever I do this time, I'll just do the opposite next time. And once I got to the end of new game plus and picked the ending you're talking about, I was like, oh, I felt like just this really fulfilled experience.
Yeah.
And it's alluded to, if you start new game plus, it's alluded to that if you did choose to start from the beginning, that basically like you're kind of on a cycle a little bit, in that the calamity still came and you're just kind of repeating what happened before. If you choose that ending. Now, the ending of, okay, let's just start from the beginning, pretty much. But you can play new game plus regardless of what ending you pick. But if you choose the ending of, I wanted to reset everything, and then you go back through New Game Plus, then Rux is like, it's implied that this had been tried before, but, it didn't work type thing. So it's kind of a cool way of storytelling, and you might miss it if you don't pick it, play it, and that's why you should play the games more than once, Jace. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
No, and this is what you were talking about. You were asking me if I think there's going to be a Bastion 2, or we were talking about Bastion 2 or something, but I hope not, because when there's a choice in a game at the end, I don't like knowing if there is going to be a second game or not, because then I want my ending to be the true ending, and I think that's the same with everyone. I think that's what I don't want to be like. I don't want to choose that ending, because I guess you could make a second after that ending, or a second after if you use the resurrection instead of the evacuation. Either way, I was just like, the story's complete. You made your choices. The message got across. It doesn't need a second game. This is one of those games where and I don't think we will, because of how the developers are with this story. They wanted to tell a story. They wanted to give you life lessons, send a message. They did that. The story and the game are over. Like, you made your choice. You know what you did.
Yeah. I agree. And because then, like, the ending you choose, basically, like, I don't know, if someone really wanted to be able to just kind of be on that everlasting loop, so to speak, then having a second game kind of throws that in the toilet. Unless you tell it from another perspective of...
That's what I was thinking, too.
Another Ceylondian, or maybe you play as a Yura this time instead of a Ceylondian.
it'd be cool to see, because the world is cool. And this is another thing. I would like, if there was a Bastion 2, I don't want to see any of the same characters that we saw in the first game. I would like to see a new perspective, maybe on like right before the calamity hits. Like you see the world, you explore a little bit of it, and then the calamity hits, and then everyone's like, getting frozen in time, and you're just kind of like, what is going on? Like, how can I save this? And maybe, who knows? Maybe you're the one that creates the Bastion in Bastion 2.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think and that's the thing, is it seems like a sin to not tell more of the story, but I understand this studio very much. I was watching the documentary on No Clip, and they were saying that, like, they don't really have plans going into something. Like, they just kind of throw stuff at the wall. I don't think you realize this game was made by 7 people.
That's impressive.
So they don't really go into it thinking like, oh, this is what our next idea is. They just kind of like morph their idea as it goes along. And it's kind of crazy to see the difference between Bastion to Transistor to Pyre to now to Hades, which kind of goes back to Bastion a little bit. But I don't know. It's a really, they're a very interesting studio. And I know for a fact if they made more Bastion, it would be in the right way, because it's very much like their baby, and it's their vision coming to life, and they're going to figure out a way to make it fit, but they're not going to force it. So, I mean, we can want it all we want, and there's parts of me that's like, yeah, this is perfect, but there's other parts of me where I'm like, I want more, But yeah, no, I think it's a great game. I think they're, like you said, and this is what I get out of it, is no matter how insignificant you think your decisions are, the decisions you make vastly affect the world around you. And if there was only 10 people left in the world, every little decision you make is going to affect somebody else in some way. And, just like treat each other good also, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of little lessons in here with good messages.
The end of the world is at stake. There's no room for hatred.
Yes.
Humanity's got to come together basically.
Yeah.
There's no room for that in this world. And look at the person who tried to make room for that. Look what happened. Yeah,
exactly. That's really good, Jace. I totally agree. So obviously, those 2 decisions you've experienced both of them. Then obviously, if you pick the ending that is obviously the happy ending of trying to escape, you get these really cool end credits scenes with like drawings of you kind of building the world around you as the game has ended, and this really cool music plays, and it's just a really fulfilling experience. It's like, man, I want to spend more time, and it's like as soon as it was one of those first feelings of as soon as I finished it, I was ready to go back through it again.
Really, that's nice. This is a very satisfying game to beat, and there's not many games where when I beat them, I'm like I'm extremely satisfied. It's very rare for me to find a game like that. And like when I do find a game like that, I recommend it to everybody. Sadly, this is one of those games where it's just games are supposed to be like, so like, I don't know, like, all these AAA games are just the same thing published over and over again. And these games are kind of like just no one even bats an eye at these kind of games. And it's sad because, you don't get a good life message, or what's the word I'm trying to look for?
Like a moral?
Yeah, from like a game like, that comes out every year, like a Call of Duty game,
Yeah. Just these big budget studio experiences Yeah.
So like, and when people ask me like why I like video games so much, I'm like, because these are the kind of games that I like to recommend. It's like games are like a better version of books or movies, like, because you're the one that's controlling everything, and you're the one that makes the story. So it's like,
what's funny? You kind of sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was done with what I was saying.
I totally pick up what you're saying. It's funny because there's this TED Talk I listened to the other day of this brain. She studies the brain. So I guess it's a neurologist, I guess, of some sorts, but she basically does brain study and measures capacity of brain and basically of the brain, and basically runs tests like on cognition and different parts of the brain and how different things work. And she did this thing on video games and was like, if you saw your husband, or if you come home from work and you see your spouse or your kid playing these video games, why does it trigger like this negative reaction towards you? Like, why is there a negative connotation attached to it? And she says, would you feel the same way if you came home and they were reading Shakespeare, or if they were, building something, or, doing something like utilizing a different part of the brain, or watching television? Like, would you be feeling that same way? I can guarantee you most people aren't going to be coming home and seeing their kids read Shakespeare and think to themselves, they're not going to think anything negative about it. They won't even give it a second thought. Now, it comes into the thing, she gets into this of how much time you spend on it. She's like, binging anything, binge culture is bad. Like, binging anything is not good for you. Days on end, hours on end, like not taking a break, not getting up, like not using, not going to get a glass of water when you're thirsty. I mean, basically taking away basic necessities of life, or stifling yourself a little bit from those things and not listening to human instinct, like, yeah, that's bad. But there's actually been studies done that people growing up playing video games end up having better vision, end up using more of their brain capacity, because there's multiple parts of the brain being used in a video game, most video games. And she was talking about Call of Duty. Like, she's like talking about Black Ops 2. This is back in 2013. So we're talking about a game like Bastion, which is nowhere near like Call of Duty. You're talking about multiple parts of your brain being used at one time, which could make the argument, and we talk about this all the time about video games being an art form. You're talking about multiple parts of the brain being used at one time. There's no way that a book is ever going to give that to you. It won't. Scientifically, it only uses specific parts of the brain to give you a certain experience.
I completely agree with everything that you're saying, and it's so funny because, 5-10 years ago, when Minecraft was like huge, like Minecraft was the thing, my dad would always make fun of me for playing Minecraft. I'm like, it helps me be creative.
Yeah.
And now, my littlest brother, he's always playing like either Fortnite or something like Apex, and he's like, you know what, Minecraft isn't as bad because at least you're not like, Fortnite is more, just going around trying to be like the top person in the island that you're in, instead of like actually being creative,
really driving like
brain function.
Yeah, like really driving
something creative.
Yeah, exactly. And there is a creative element to Fortnite even, but like it's not the same. Like, you're talking about apples and oranges, and like
exactly.
That's the thing, is the point of the fact of the matter is you talk about something like Minecraft, which even utilizes completely different parts of the brain, like the creative aspect. Like, you're given a coloring book, basically. Everybody's getting the same picture, but you can draw in the colors. Like, there's a lot of games we get like that. Whereas I feel like with something like Minecraft, you get a blank canvas. You can make whatever you want.
I completely agree with what you're saying. Like, Minecraft just reaches that, like, it's literally the game where it's like you can build. Your mind is the limit.
Yeah.
In Minecraft.
Totally.
Where there's a limit in Fortnite, there's a limit in like so many other games that are out there. There's always a limit, but in Minecraft, like, it's literally your mind's the limit.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it reached a lot of people's hearts in a way, just because, like, you're telling me I can go and like build a ginormous castle,
yeah,
and like live in it and decorate it myself. Like, there's not a lot of games that you can do that in.
Yeah.
It's just like, and you can make it your own. Like, no house that you make, no room, nothing will ever be the same in that game. You can like customize it to your own. Everybody's house could be different.
Right.
I guarantee you, if everybody on Earth just like built a house on Minecraft, every single one would look completely different than the other.
Yeah. I agree with that. Like, to an extent, I really do agree with that. I mean, it's just, and that, we've digressed from the main topic, but that's the point. Is video games are a medium in which you're going to be seeing more and more of going forward. The next generation of gamers are going to be, like, they're going to be looking at us as old people with gray hair playing games. Like, that's going to be a really like a big source of that's what people do. Like that's what older people do is they play video games because that's the generation thing right now. Like I feel like no one really grows out of it because it's gotten to the point where it becomes it's a part of our media now at this point. Like it's right up there. It makes more money since 2013. It's consistently made more money than the music and film industry combined every year. Every year it makes more. It's becoming more and more of a medium that people are just gonna have to start getting used to. And obviously there is things out there that are, they can be negative. And I've always said, and I think you have always said too, if you have a problem with violence, if you have a problem with anger, things like that, you shouldn't play anything that is gonna make you feel those tendencies. You know what I mean? Like if your kid has an anger problem, you probably shouldn't let him play Fortnite because he's gonna die and then he's gonna rage and then maybe he is the type of person that goes on to, do horrible things to people. You just never know. So it's all in moderation. But something like Bastion is like Bastion has such a different feel to it, and it's gonna remain one of my favorite games of all time. Like I don't know. Like I just going through it this next time, it's just there's nothing else like it out there. So
no, there's not.
If you haven't, really not. Yeah, if you haven't played Bastion, you need to.
Yeah, if I was trying to go through and I was going to make a top 10 like list of games that people haven't played that they need to go through just to experience like a good like indie developer game. And this was in the top 3. Bastion is in like the top 3 video games where I'm like, if you haven't played Bastion, just sit down and go through it because like it's 6 hours. It's not that challenging. There's even a mode. There's specifically a mode called the no sweat mode where you can seriously just go through and experience the story. Like it can take you 4 hours if you do it like that. And like just go through, experience the story, understand like the message, and it will stick in your mind I guarantee you it'll stick in your mind for like the rest of your life.
It will. You will never, it won't be, it's a non-forgettable, one-of-a-kind experience. And it introduced a level of storytelling that had never been done before, where everything you do, this guy's in your ear like, well, the kid, he just decided that he was going to go along and go down to the river. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's unmatched. You have to. And it's a masterclass.
The game itself, I mean, it's on sale all the time. Every time there's a sale on the Nintendo Switch or on the Microsoft Store, every time, it's like less than $5. There's no reason to not just pick this game up. Yeah. Sometimes it's the price of like a Red Bull can or your coffee drink. If you can like just take a coffee or a Red Bull drink away, go get Bastion, and like I guarantee you, I'm gonna say it again, the message that it gives you will stick more in your head, and it'll give you an unforgettable experience more than that coffee or Red Bull can will. I promise you.
Yeah, that's great, Jace. I totally agree. It's about time to score it. And I have to say one more thing about the price. Like at most, it's going to cost you $15. That's how much the game costs. Yeah. So you gotta, like, no question about it. You gotta. So, but yeah, we've been talking for a while now, and I feel like we've gotten to the end, of the review process. I think we've only said a few nitpicky things. I haven't heard you say anything negative.
Dude, there is not one negative thing about this game. If I could give this game an official rating, 10 out of 10. Like It is a dang near perfect game.
And I will also agree with Jace. I'm going to have to give it a 10 out of 10 also. And it gets to this point of where you're just kind of blinded. People say like, oh, you can be blinded by nostalgia. Yeah, you can. I've played this game so much. I'm like, there's nothing negative about this game.
You can, but even when I played it when it first came out on PC, I was like, this game's a 10 out of 10. There was nothing wrong with it. So it's not more of a nostalgia thing for me. It's just like, this game does what it's meant to do, and it does it extremely well.
Very good, Jace. Well, that's another one in the can, awesome. Bro.
Heck yeah, dude.
Another
I'm
review.
So glad to be back in these things.
Yeah, dude.
You guys get to hear more of me.
Yeah, I hope you get to grace us with your presence more, Jace. It's been I don't know if it's changed a little bit, since you've been on.
Yeah, it has. It's changed a lot. It's funny that you keep me with these updates. You keep me with the updates about what's going on with the podcast, and I'm always like, man, I really, really want to be part of that, but life just gets a hold of you.
It can, which is why, whenever
it just shakes you around.
Yeah, which is why whenever you can, find a format that works, you obviously want to include everybody because I truly believe like nothing great ever came about without a help from friends, and like, I don't know. I really feel like these reviews and things like that have been a really, a really awesome experience, because I've had people that have, probably who listen to the show that never thought they were probably ever going to be on a podcast, but yet here they are. And it's nice to see, that kind of like original geekly bi-weekly flavor able to come back a little bit. So
we're back, baby.
We're back, baby.
For this episode, though.
Yeah, Jace and I have plans to do some cool things, but if you want to see what's going on with that, you're just going to have to stay tuned to this podcast feed. Definitely check out wannabecritic.com. You can get a hold of us there. You can email us at geeklybiweekly1@gmail.com. You're going to be able to find all the information about our current projects we have going on over there. I run the site. I run the social media. You can find us on social media at The Wannabe Critic, all that jazz. Jace, can they find you anywhere? Do you want them to find you anywhere?
Not at the moment. You could probably find my old Instagram account.
Okay.
But next time, hopefully I'll have my camera here soon, so you'll be able to see my hideous face.
Well, and we don't always put the Game Club reviews on YouTube, but because that's really for like the main feed. But if you were gonna put it on there, I was gonna try it out. But every once in a while I'll put a Game Club episode on the YouTube channel. But yeah, man, it's great to have you back. It was great to sit down and talk about a game that we both are really happy with, and it's nice to play games, and it's nice to choose games that you can talk really highly about, and I feel like
there's not many.
Yeah, I feel like the negative experiences that we're going to have with games are going to be ones that are like brand new, right? Where we pay $60 for a game, it's topical, we got the hot takes, we have our own spin on it, and but for the most part, I'm just trying to pick games that for the most part are mostly positive experiences, because we want to give our listeners a positive experience. So listeners, if you appreciate the show, let us know. We would appreciate it. And if you want to get a hold of Jace, you can always contact me at those places I said before. So,
and we appreciate you, the listeners.
Yes.
We love you.
We do. We appreciate you as a listener, all the support you've given us. It means a lot. If you've been listening to our other podcast feeds, God bless you. But if you're just listening to this one, that's awesome too. So thank you so much. We're going to sign off here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for preparing yourselves for a plethora of hot takes and potentially unpopular opinions. Say goodbye, Jace.
Bye, everybody.